Everybody, I want to thank you for coming. If you haven't seen this brief documentary and video, this is Damian Marley, the son of Bob Marley. And the reason I'm pausing it at this point, what's happening is a community is being evicted. The police have shown up, and the elder teacher is the grandfather. And I want you to think of yourself as the young elder teacher, whatever age you are. And your program happens to be in the backyard where he's doing his ceremony. And it's part of connecting to himself to be able to fight in this struggle for justice. Let's continue to watch. And as the elder, part of our role is how do we bless this generation in terms of preparing them. And so you see here at the dinner table a preparation before this young person has to go to battle.
On them, we must up the place, turn up the bass and make some sound, boy run. And we will end your week just like a Sunday. We must up the place, turn up the bass and make them all have fun. Skrillex and blaze the fire, make it fun them. We must up the place, turn up the bass and make some sound, boy run. And we will end.
Oftentimes we hear undocumented students say, I'm unafraid and I'm unapologetic, and it's hard to understand maybe for some of us how the fear is gone. And I think for this young man, he's reached a point where he knows what he has to do. He knows what's ahead. I don't think he's necessarily looking at the police department and the evictions as an insurmountable odd, but I think he is tapping into his culture, his roots, and his strength. And sometimes what we never talk about is the inner resiliency called the phoenix within. And so you're about to see come out of his body as a metaphor of phoenix, and in a moment you're going to see him go face to face with his strength. And what are you going to do with your strength? Because we have a lot of freedom fighters that have come before us. We just buried one of them, Nelson Mandela, and he was told you cannot change apartheid in South Africa. And you might be living part of a generation that is telling you you are not going to have full citizenship, and there will never be equality in the United States, and empires like the US empire will never fall, even though the Roman Empire fell, even though the Russian Empire fell, even though many empires have fallen. And so you might be thinking that the odds are so insurmountable that nothing can change, yet you might be Nelson Mandela and be like, lock me up for 30 years, have me believe that things aren't possible, see what I can do. It is of that faith that we will speak of today.
And you week just like a Sunday.
Who's seen that before? So if you notice, it ends with the elder and 3 wolves. Now you know Damian Marley is the son of Bob Marley. And if you remember Bob Marley's legacy and his work, one of his songs was Three Little Birds. And for some people of the faith tradition, they equate three little birds with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so everybody cloaks themselves and everybody equips themselves for the war that they're about to face in different ways. Bob Marley did so in a certain way, and maybe for Damian Marley, it's no longer a time of three little birds, but three little wolves. And the time is to fight back and to fight back oppressive systems. You are part of a generation that is seeing an investment of your tax dollars on prisons at an all-time high, on military and wars all over the world, but no priority towards education and towards freedom. And so you have to decide whether you stand up like Harriet Tubman and build an underground revolutionary movement, if you're part of the Nelson Mandelas, the Cesar Chavez that are going to change the world, or are we going to stand idly by? And I've been privileged enough to work with young people over the course of 2 decades that don't want to stand idly by. So today's talk is going to be about undocumented youth, about youth that are on the margins, youth that are gang involved, youth that are gang impacted, that once they realize this history, once they understand they have a phoenix within, they start to walk differently, talk differently. And if it's okay with you, let's get started. Is that cool? Y'all are a little bit of slate. I'm going to say that again. If it's okay with you, can we get started? Eso mero, eso mero. Man, I came all the way from 17 degrees, freezing Cambridge to be here with y'all. I need some love. A ver, I don't know this laptop. It's not mine. That's too many flags for me. A ver. Chetos, huh? Okay, we're going to try to see what happened is my workshop was somewhere else. We migrated here. Thank you for your patience. We're going to see if this works. There's been some obstacles along the way. My computer crashed last night. Someone lent us a computer, and now we're on computer número 3. But it's all to the good. Ah, chetos. No, eso no es. Thank you for your patience. Everything went out? Pero nada sale. No, but it's not this one. Oh, you saw it? But why is it like that? Somebody who said that, come up here. Lead this. Nada. Oh, chetos, you, okay. But look at that. Okay, so one's messed up, but we'll go on from there. So I think one of the things to think about is we started an organization for gang-involved youth, and some people don't like the word homies. They find that to be counterproductive. And so you might ask yourselves, why homies empowerment? I do want to encourage you to take any kind of notes that you feel are relevant, whether you're filming, whether you're documenting stuff, whether you're keeping it in your heart and in your mind or on your mobile device. All of that is beautiful. And part of it is that what we realized from working with gang-involved youth is that to many of them, gangs are families and they're second family units. Now, how many of you have been involved in a sisterhood organization or a brotherhood organization? Has anybody been involved in a fraternity or a sorority? And so to many gang members, this is their fraternity. This is their sorority. And this is the place where they feel a sense of belonging, where they feel a sense of camaraderie, where there's certain rites of passages, where there's a certain level of protection. And mind you, oftentimes that may be distorted. But what I'm going to ask of you today is if you have been fed many years of news knowledge of gangs, that you dispel that for the next hour. You can hold those beliefs an hour later if you choose, but I just want you to try on a different hat. And I want you to try to see things from another perspective. And that's going to be my attempt if I do my job. Now, I have some goodies for you. I thought I was going to come and sell my books because I need a fundraise to be at Harvard. If you were here during the after lunch keynote, I shared a little bit of that. But I'd rather give some of them away. And so I have a couple of books that I want to give away, so I need some participation. If you all ready, she's ready. Somebody explain to me this symbol on my right, your left. What is this symbol about? Say more. And if you can project your voice so everybody can hear you. You're right. That's right. And what is huelga Spanish for? And what strike are you talking about? Right. So this eagle. That's right. She's getting wound up.
No. I haven't been exposed to this knowledge in a while. So, but just the huelga bird, it's something that represents freedom, something that represents freedom from oppression. Like, I'm from the farm worker community. I'm from Santa Maria, California, very proudly. And so to me, this means like family, like because my family participated in strikes, participated in the great boycott. So to me, that's what it means. It means familia. I don't really can see what the N means, or it's sometimes I'm guessing if you're like trying to connect it with gangs, it has to do with like norteños, and like the red represents norteños, and the blue represents sureños, and all that stuff. But that's as far as I'm gonna go with that, Cesar. Like, yeah, you can break it down.
I want to give you a regalito, and so one of them is a raza history book, and one of them is an immigrant rights book. ¿Cuál quieres? Damn. By the way, after this, we're rolling deep to Santa Maria, and we're going to stop this ice madness. Can you give her some love one more time? So, I wish I had a fancy clicker so I can click, but she's right. Please mark this date, 4/4/14. 4/4/14 is the national release of the first ever Hollywood version of the Cesar Chavez story. And it was approved by the family. It was approved by Helen Chavez. And Helen Chavez is one of the co-founders of the United Farm Workers. But this symbol is very important. It's a symbol of you have farm workers who in American history never really had rights, who even the AFL-CIO and the Teamsters didn't believe in, even though they're fellow union organizers, who fought for rights, for 8-hour workday, for lunch breaks, for bathroom breaks, for some sort of equal pay. And that is part of U.S. history and part of our history that oftentimes is not very well taught in schools outside of the Bay Area. Now, before I go on to anything else, how many of you are working with high school students? Amazing. How many of you are working at the college level? And anybody at the middle school and elementary level? And anybody at the senior home level? Okay. I hope I caught everybody. And so part of this history is a history that oftentimes isn't being taught. But she's right in that it's also associated with norteños. If you've ever seen gang graffiti and you've ever seen the XIV, those are Roman numerals and they stand for the number 14. And the number 14 is the 14th letter of the alphabet. And that's for the N, representing nuestra familia, or our family. The way norteños got started, and by the way, Cesar Chavez was a norteño. And I'm allowed to tell that story because I know Helen Chavez very well, but it's a different kind of norteño and a different kind of banging for freedom. So the red does represent norteños, but it also represents the UFW, and I'll speak about that in a second. But Nuestra Familia were a group of Latinos that were locked up for different reasons, for small crimes, who were being harassed by prison guards, who were being harassed by other ethnic groups, and needed to band together as sisters and brothers and take care of each other. And so in many ways, when I hear that history, I have to say I'm a norteño. Now, what is this flag? What is this flag in the middle? Why is there an eagle in the middle? Why is there a serpent in the middle? What is that about? Tell me about it.
Mexico, when they came to Tenochtitlan, that was their sign that they were looking for. The eagle on the cactus, but I don't remember the word. Right.
And part of it is part of Mexica knowledge and history. Can I give you a regalito as well? Thank you for that knowledge. How many of you knew that? How many of you did it? It's all right. It's okay. Then we're teaching each other. Which one do you prefer? Okay, history teacher. That's awesome. And so Part of why that's important is, for me, I grew up Mexicano, but in the United States, I didn't learn a lot about Mexican or Mexican-American history growing up in U.S. schools, especially after the age of 9. And so that's important because that's not only Aztec history. Aztec is the name given by the Spaniards, Aztecas, but really it's Mexicas. And understanding not the idea of idolatry, but the idea of having respect for Mother Earth, having respect for the land, having respect for all things, and so having ceremonies for all things, and having different people or energies that we look to, like Quetzalcoatl and others. And so for me, that's a sense of pride as a Mexicano. Now, that's also used as a symbol for Sureños. And Sureños, originally the parent organization is the Mexican Mafia. And the Mexican Mafia got started in the 1950s, also inside a prison, but in the South. And they were also being harassed, and they needed to come together. Now, how many of you remember hearing a little bit about the Zoot Suit riots? I'm not going to give you too much history, but I need to give you some. There was no such thing as a Zoot Suit riots. Zoot Suiters never rioted. Who rioted? Sailors. Sailors came home drunk from World War II, and they needed to find some black and brown women to rape. And they needed to find some black and brown men wearing zoot suits who are greasers to beat up and harass in the middle of the street in their own neighborhood in East Oakland and West Oakland and in East LA. And yet that history is never taught that way, except with the exception of the work of Luis Valdez in the play Zoot Suit. But it's still called the Zoot Suit riots and not called the Sailors' riots. And so part of why I bring that up is because oftentimes the so-called gang members during that time, during the Sleepy Lagoon case and other cases, were just kids coming together saying, you're not going to harass us anymore. Like it's us against the sailors or us against the Marines. The odds are not fair, but we're going to fight back. And now that leads us to this organization. Anybody know who this is? Border Brothers, the BBs. Where are they from? Who's from East Oakland? Where are Border Brothers from? East Oakland. So in deep East Oakland, we have a Latino gang called Border Brothers, but they didn't originate there. What you need to know about the Border Brothers, and I'm going to give you a little bit of U.S. history that you're not going to find in U.S. history books, is that if you do enough history of Texas history, the Texas Rangers lynched more Mexicans than the KKK ever did blacks. But this is not a competition of lynchings. But because African Americans fought so hard for their history to be taught from the 50s to the 60s to the Black Power movement, we would not have today a baseball team called the Louisiana KKK. We wouldn't allow it. We have a baseball team called the Texas Rangers, after the people that lynched my people. We have a show that we used to have called Walker, Texas Ranger, with Chuck Norris, pretending to be a fake U.S. hero with fake U.S. history. So the Border Brothers is a real organization of people at the border who united and said, you're not going to lynch another Mexican. Somebody was bold enough to tell this history in Hollywood. Anybody know the film that was made telling this history? It was made in 1980. It's called The Ballad of Gregorio Cortés by Edward James Olmos. Edward James Olmos made a powerful film. Unfortunately, part of this generation can only have access to films that Redbox and Netflix want you to have. So Ballad of Gregorio Cortés is not something allowed. Like, we think we have freedom to choose films on Netflix, but it's what they want you to see. So you're not going to find that film. And with the abolishment of many of independent media and Real Video and other places, you're not going to find these films. If you want a copy of it, I'd be happy to figure out a way to get it to you. You just have to email me. But it's the kind of history that needs to be taught. Now, they're also known as BBs, and why the 22? And that's a big number in Texas and in Texas prisons, because they represent B as the second letter of the alphabet, so 2 2s. But enough about that. Let me ask you a question. When we think of graffiti through the news lens and through the public safety lens, what do we think about? No se me duerman. Gangs. What else? Yes, that's the word. Vandalism. It is a crime. 186 liquor outlets in my neighborhood in East Oakland is not a crime. Not teaching African American studies and Latino history in my schools is not a crime. Environmental injustice and toxins in West Oakland is not a crime. But a little graffiti on the wall, shit, you're going to prison. That's vandalism. Let me ask you something. What is generally the type of graffiti that kids put up on the walls? Help me out. My name. Like, listen, see me. I matter. My name matters. My mom gave me the name Cesar, but I don't like it. I just threw up C-Dog. I want you to see me. I matter. Somebody notice me, please. One thing I tag. What else do I tag? Territory. Listen, I'm proud of my neighborhood. It's all about Mitchell Street because this is where I grew up. This is where I lost this tooth, y'all. This is where I had my first kiss. I'm proud of my neighborhood. Don't take away my neighborhood pride. 2, what's the third thing that gets tagged? The numbers, the gangs, part of the pride, right? Part of the pride in the neighborhood or where you belong. What's the third thing?
Stuff that happens.
Yes, I just lost my dad. He got shot. I lost my little sister. I'm in what's called mourning. I have undiagnosed PTSD. And it's not post-traumatic stress disorder because I didn't leave Iraq and come back. I live in Iraq. It's permanent, but nobody's diagnosed it. All they see is my symptoms. I am what Frantz Fanon would say, I'm a rubber band ready to snap. And I'm just tagging on the walls, rest in peace, and my sister's name, and you erase it because it's vandalism. I'm hurting. And what's the fourth thing that I tag? A message. That could be if I'm political or I'm saying something that I see a little less of until you start raising the generation of young warriors that are going to start spraying the walls a little differently. But what about freedom? Some history? What about free so-and-so? Too many of our people are locked up. We have 3 million prisoners, the most amount of prisoners in any industrialized country in the entire world. So free so-and-so. So when you think about graffiti, I don't know if we always think about this. But these are the 4 major areas of graffiti. And I understand that we don't want to do it on private property. We got to think about what private property really is. Like, I think I'm going to convince y'all to park on Mother Earth. I'm going to convince you to pay for water. So private property is a very interesting concept. But on private property, you see this, and it's a society. Kids mirror our society. Would you see the dead? Would you see the locked up? Would you see my existence? Would you see my pride? But instead, what we see in the neighborhood, this is graffiti that is validated and okay by society. But usually it comes in the form of half-naked females selling us alcohol. My 2-year-old daughter has to see that every day. And pretty soon she's going to ask me about it. But that's corporate graffiti with a little bit of money, so we call it a billboard. But Nike's also saying, would you just see me? That got there, would you just see me and buy me? Everybody, I guess, wants to be seen, but we have tolerance for some, and we lock up others. Just something to think about. Now, how many of you have honestly worked with gang-involved youth that have fallen through your cracks and that you haven't been able to reach? For me, that's been my life for the last 20 years. A lot of failing. And I've come to talk about all of my failings in a way that's hopefully empowering to somebody. Now, when we put out a flyer like this, who are we trying to attract? What kind of raza? 4.0? Valedictorian? The perfect dreamer? Not necessarily. Maybe. When we had a flyer with this on it, who do you think showed up to the film screening? All the norteños from the school. We had perfect attendance. Not perfect attendance in daytime, perfect attendance after school. What's a Socratic seminar? A circle and just talking. Socrates made it all fancy and shit. No, it's just circle up and talk. Now, you need a common text. And a film is a powerful common text because you can have a PhD professor, you can have the principal, you can have you, the counselor, the mentor, the teacher, you can have a 6-year-old, and you all watch one common text, Voces Inocentes, innocent voices. Who's seen that film? Imagine after you see that film the kind of conversation you're going to have about El Salvador, about war, about childhood, about resiliency, about rooftop, about all kinds of things. Right? And so what you can start to do is to create history and the value of history being taught. If we don't learn from our history, we are doomed to repeat it. And Malcolm X said that of all the sciences, history is the most powerful. So if you're doing nothing else, where is our history programs and our re-education programs so that people know who they are and they have knowledge of self? And you can do this, quote unquote, after school. Because during school, they're not going to learn this. This is an afterthought. After school is an afterthought. It's the place where you catch them after they've had 8 hours of madness. And you're the one that's got to catch them up. But in after school, you have some freedom because I bet you there's not many of you that are working in the high school that have a Latino history class for academic credit taught every day as a core graduation requirement. Who has that? One. Why? Why, when you're teaching black and brown and yellow kids, don't you have that history as a core graduation requirement? And then, not why not? So you can start with an after-school program, and all you need is a projector. You don't need something this fancy, and you begin to show certain films, and then you have dialogue. Now, this is like step 12. But I'm bringing up step 12 because I was working in East Oakland at the time with Norteño youth who were from Central America who said to me, the ones that have papers, man, you're from Mexico, you don't know shit about Central America, you don't know shit about El Salvador and this and that. And they're right. So as a teacher, I had to be a learner, and I'll be like, well, you teach me. They're like, man, I don't really know, but you don't really know. And so then we started learning that history together. And as we started learning that history, they're like, you be talking about Tenochtitlan, and then you go all the way to Machu Picchu, but what about the pyramids in El Salvador? Do we have any? Yes, you do. El Tazumal. And imagine when you're sitting at El Tazumal. And it took a while to get to this journey, to get Norteño youth who wear red to go to the land of a blue flag, El Salvador, and for young people to meet their great-grandmother for the first time. And when you meet your great-grandmother, your elder, and you become to get deeply rooted as a tree, and you realize how strong you are, and that the red is not for the Norteño, but it's a revolutionary color for the revolutionary students of the FMLN, even though you're wearing a bunch of Raider colors, you begin to see things differently. And when you're hiking in Chalatenango, where the revolutionaries and the kids would hide out to not be recruited into the military, hiking takes on a whole new meaning. And it's this kind of excursions that can be done all over the U.S. with undocumented students. You can go to Barrios Unidos in Santa Cruz. You can go to Homeboy Industries. You can go see where Cesar Chavez is buried and spend some time with Helen Chavez in Delano. It's about having the freedom to explore and make history come alive and real and relevant and significant and change-worthy. How do we start? Where do we start? Why not start with the little kids? Here's middle school kids and some high school kids. We called them the little homies, and they began to organize. And then they created their first flyer, and they're out in the community mobilizing for a project that I'll tell you about in a little bit. And here they are trying to figure out what they're going to sell to raise money, because what we oftentimes get is there's no money. There's no money for the kind of programs that we want to do, but there's a ton for prisons. You're all taxpayers. And part of U.S. history is no taxation without representation. But your taxation is going to prison building and military building. And it's until as a populace we stand up and say, ya basta, that will continue. But there will be a time when there will be Nelson Mandela's in the room, when there will be enough people frustrated that they'll stop tanks and bombs. That time is coming, but people must be empowered and be ready to do it. So these are young people that were in 2 rival neighborhoods, and we spent only 6 months with them, teaching them the same curriculum at Fremont High School to Norteño affiliated youth, the same curriculum at Castlemont High School to Border Brother affiliated youth. And we started to bring them together. Not all of them showed up, But it was powerful when they started to come together and realize they have a lot in common. And then it's about them getting active and organized and doing something positive in the community. This is a video that you got a chance to see a part of it if you heard the keynote, but I want you to see more of it. However, the news in the United States is very celebrity focused. I just came back from Cuba and I could not find any celebrity focused news. I was so pissed at Cuba, they never told me Justin Bieber got arrested until I came to America. They were telling me about Brazil and Pakistan and Honduras and informing me about the world when all I wanted to know was what's going on with Bieber fever. So you're going to see this news coverage, Bay Area News, Jefferson Award, CBS News. Don't sensationalize it more than they already do. They try to give me an award, try to paint me as some kind of woo-woo-woo. No. I want you to see the work that's been happening and the kind of work that we can do in the community if we believe that a new world is possible. Let's see if I can make this work. Where's that amazing technician that volunteered earlier?
Want to create peace among rival gang members? Well, show them they're not that different from one another. That's what this week's Jefferson Award winner is doing. Sharon Chin on the man behind an innovative program in Oakland.
In a tough East Oakland neighborhood where gang violence is a part of life, there is hope.
Come and join us for the dinner.
Old rivals cook up new friendships under Cesar Cruz, co-founder of the Homies Empowerment Program.
It's really hard to kill someone when you know them. Y'all ready?
Cesar invites sworn enemies to cook and eat side by side every Wednesday night at the YMCA on 45th Avenue. Afterward, there's food for thought, a message of peace.
You can be a peaceful gang member. You can be someone who takes care of the community.
Take Adrian Arias and Nestor Ramirez. They live in rival neighborhoods, but discover they can find common ground. They share the grief gang violence can bring.
We could relate, like, the things that we go through, but in a different way, you know? They're gonna go through the same pain that we go through, and it's all the same thing, you know? We're just going back at each other, and it's never gonna stop unless we stop ourselves.
Cesar knows the vicious cycle. Before he became an educator, he grew up in a broken home and got in trouble with the law. He felt compelled to help start the Homies Empowerment Program 2 years ago at the East Bay YMCA, where he's on staff.
I average about 6 to 10 funerals a year that I attend. Most are open casket. I'm tired of it.
Today, he oversees more than 200 young people in the program who are in gangs or influenced by gangs. The president of the East Bay YMCA praises Cesar's leadership.
He has the passion and urgency of an activist, the knowledge and nurture of a teacher, and the skills and psychological appropriateness and modalities of a developmental psychologist.
He's come out in a lot of movies about norteños and gangs.
Cesar also teaches Latino history, not only at Homies Empowerment meetings, but also at a Rise High School in Oakland.
And what happens when I don't meet someone else's expectations?
Students say learning about Latino history for the very first time helps them dream big.
After you know that your race also has heroes, just like every other race, then it motivates you, and you know that it's possible.
And many students say Cesar is one of their heroes for making peace a reality.
Peace is happening in Oakland, and it's not just the stories of murder and violence. That's not the only thing happening in Oakland.
I'm going to pause it there for the sake of time. The reason I find that meaningful is now we have at least one school in the Bay Area where you teach Latino history every single day, accredited through the UC system. This curriculum you can have, just email me. It took a long fight to get the UC to approve it. But in order for kids to graduate, they need to know their history. That's powerful. Let's not underestimate that. And so that was a struggle to get. And part of the work that we do is, does anybody know my homegirl Anayvet? Anayvet is an amazing woman who runs an organization in the Bay Area called Lyric. And Lyric is an organization that helps youth that are undocumented and documented, that are queer youth of color, who are being multiply marginalized in all kinds of ways. She also used to bang, She also grew up in the Excelsior in the Mission. She's also a lesbian woman. She's also a single mom. She's also multiple degrees, including master's degrees, and will soon be pursuing a PhD. She's also from the barrio. Why do kids need to see that? Is they need to see multiple realities, and they need to see like, damn, she looks just like me, and she's fierce, and she's an amazing role model. Why not me? And she's telling her story. And so these are the kind of speakers that we have on a weekly basis, not once a year, not once a conference, but every single week that have to motivate our young people, because if an Yvette doesn't motivate you, then it'll be the next person. Now, I couldn't get this video to work, but I'll tell you about its aftermath in a little bit. I want to tell you about this young man, this Ventura. And Ventura had been kicked out of every school in Oakland, so he ended up at Dewey High School. Anybody know what Dewey High School is? What's Dewey? Continuation school, and that's saying a lot. I don't want to use the word school and Dewey in the same sentence. Because when he was going there, his welcome was barbed wire. There was a gate, there was a security at the door who wanted him. Assuming he was a criminal, his bag got searched every day, like if he was at an airport. That was his welcome to school. Then he sat for 4 hours on a computer called Cyber High to make up credits. That was his education experience. And Ventura, I started mentoring, and Ventura didn't really, he's undocumented, but he didn't really know his history. Now, how many of you have seen the film Sin Nombre? I drop a lot of different curriculum tools, so I hope you write some of these down. Sin Nombre is the Hollywood version of the documentary that I do want you to see. Who's seen the HBO documentary, Which Way Home? Well, that's what's up. In the last group, only one person had seen it. This is the educated group. Nah, I'm just playing. So Which Way Home is this amazing documentary of 8-year-olds, 12-year-olds who jump on trains from Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador by themselves to make a 3,000-mile journey on a train called the Beast. Most don't make it. Who have to go through Mexico, Mexico's love and prejudice, Mexico's support and hate. Some of my Mexican compatriots throw oranges to feed them, some throw rocks to topple them. And you see this real journey. So Ventura watches this documentary, and then he starts to make connections. And he's like, hey, have you ever noticed that at the Walgreens on Fruitvale and Foothill, hella people don't speak Spanish and they're Latino? Yeah, I said they speak Mom. He's like, what's Mom? It's a language from Guatemala. Hey, have you ever noticed that at Home Depot there's hella more men posted out there looking for work? I said, yeah, that's day laborers. What's day laborers? Well, these kids grow up, and oftentimes they are day laborers. So when we began to talk about this, he got hella excited. This is the first flyer he ever made. I told him, we're not big on titles. He didn't care. He said, I'm the youth founder and director. My name is Ventura Flores. That's my cell phone number, my digits, my email. We're going to do this shit. Quote, unquote. So he got so excited about his history, about agency, about change. But then I'm like, what are you going to do? He's like, well, I want to feed day laborers. I said, when are you going to do it? We'll get up like at 4 in the morning. I said, who the hell's going to get up at 4 in the morning? He's like, we don't do this every day. I'm like, mijo, you have a kid on the way. You're trying to graduate high school and you got a job. Okay, we'll do it 3 days a week. Finally, we settled on 1 day a week. And he said, let's do it Monday. And I was like, why Monday? He's like, they could start their week with something warm in their body. It doesn't cure hunger. It doesn't create jobs. It is actually maybe caridad, not solidaridad. It is charity, not revolutionary work. It is community service and not community empowerment. It doesn't teach to fish. It gives a little bit of fish. But do I want to tell that to a 17-year-old who's finally found a calling and wants to do something? No, it's a starting step. And a very important one. I said, who are you going to recruit? He's like, the homies. Wait, you're going to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning with the homies. He's like, you've been teaching us all this shit? And he's like, let's get the Norteño homies and the Border Brother homies to do it. That's loco. And I want you to see it for yourself, but now I want you to pretend you're their counselor. You're their mentor. I want you to think that that's your little brother or sister on the news. I want you to think that that's your son or daughter, and they've been effing up. No kid is a fuck up, excuse my language. but many kids F up. But some kids have internalized that they're F-ups. And so these kids have F'd up a lot, but they're not F-ups. And now you see them on the news, and it's your child. And I want you to be proud, and I want you to experience what I got to experience. I don't think I can cue it up this way, so I'm going to need some help from somebody, because I got to show you this video. Here's a folder that says workshop. Oh, y'all laughing at me. News. Creo que es este. No sé. Tell me about your life. No sé. Yes, wait. Remind me later.
7:33, will a group of East Bay...
So, what was kind of cool is that the two reporters that happened to do this are African American and Latino, and we inspired the hell out of both of them. I want you to see the Latina reporter. She doesn't know how to pronounce her own last name very well, but that's okay. That's okay, because we hugged her and we took care of her and we fed her too, and now she's one of our biggest supporters. You got to win over everybody, right? Because we're in this together. And she was so juiced. You could tell she's reporting. She's like, their murals are she can't talk like this, but they're hella tight, and you need to come out here, watch her. She is juice, because it's not another murder in the town that she's reporting on.
These students are right now getting ready to hand out food to day laborers this morning. KTVU's Jade Hernandez is in Oakland right now with all the details. Good morning, Jade.
Good morning. We've been following the Rasa Club all morning. This is one of their signs. This promotes the event that they're doing this morning, and I can show you. These are students, about 20 of them, who showed up this morning. They wanted to reach out to their community, a group of people who face as many obstacles as themselves, day laborers. These students raised money and decided every Monday through December they would meet at the East Lake YMCA to make coffee, wrap up their Mexican bread and cookies, and deliver their goods to San Leandro on High Street. That's where we are live this morning.
Now, that young man is the young man I took to El Salvador. That's Adrian, and he's on the north side of town. And so right after him is some of the border brothers. What they hate is that they have to hug every time we circle up. Now, when you are trying to break the machismo code and when you're trying to break the gang code, it's hard. How you going to get two homies to hug from rival gangs? But now it's part of our culture. Now they're like cupcaking and stuff, you know. It's like, but it took a little while. And so that's what you're about to see. And then I want you to be Stephanie Zambrano's mom or dad or mentor. And she's only a 10th grader. She's about to speak out against the government. And then she's about to talk about what she's doing. And you can tell something big's happening in her life. She's going to be the first in her family to graduate high school. And instead of going to college right away, she's going to go serve the people of Ghana. Of Ghana. Because she began to realize she's an internationalist. Check this out.
A regular meeting spot for workers. Today the students are off of school. In upcoming weeks, students will be sacrificing their sleep to come here before school starts. The YMCA director in charge of this project explains this neighborhood is torn between two rival gangs, historically the Norteños and Border Brothers. Students part of this project have made a choice to become a better example for those around them. Some of the high schoolers met yesterday to discuss their plan for today, and several of them created a mural, and it shows just the talent here, the spirit which these students are reaching out with, and it's very clear.
They're the ones that need the most help since they're abused, harassed, and the government doesn't support them at all.
About 50 students are part of this East Lake YMCA group. About half showed up this morning. The students just recently started learning about their Rasa or racial history, their immigrant past. Cesar Cruz, the YMCA director in charge of this group, told us this was a way for students to feed their people. They will be making their deliveries every Monday.
What was important about this, you didn't see a single adult on the news. There was no director talking about, I started this. I would have been lying. I had nothing to do with this. This was young people who they had just started learning their racial history, their Raza past, and the impact of history, as Malcolm X would say. And I want to show you the Spanish news clip because they go a little deeper and shit, right? And then you're going to see a Norteño talking and all the Border Brothers watching like, what you finna say? And he says something positive, but he has to say it in Spanish, and he's losing his Spanish. And so How many of you speak Spanish? Okay, it sounds like a million of you. When it's time to translate it, y'all better raise your hands again, and we're going to need your help translating. I'm going to show you a little bit more of this, but I want you to keep thinking about, you're the mom of these kids, and they're usually been messing up, they're cutting school, they're caught up, they're smoking weed, they're getting suspended, and now you're seeing them on the news like this.
Through December. Reporting live in Oakland this morning, Jade Hernandez, KTVU, Channel 2.
Y nos vamos a Oakland en el número 2. Un grupo de jóvenes, en su mayoría latinos, demostró que para ayudar solo se necesita tomar la decisión. Y la niña nos explica.
Hasta una cafetera tuvieron que comprar, pero lo hicieron con el firme propósito de servir.
Apenas esta mañana fui.
That's the famous Ventura. So that's the famous Ventura who was like doing it. You know, the one who had the flyer. He's the leader. And then I'm not very happy at this moment because this is my van. And I didn't buy it this way. But if I'm talking all this smack 25 minutes about graffiti, that's my van. It just kind of showed up one day like that. They borrowed it.
Dimos de comer a los jornaleros, le dimos desayunar café y pan.
Decenas de estudiantes de preparatoria de Oakland usaron hoy un día de vacaciones para levantarse más temprano y ayudar a preparar desayunos para los jornaleros. ¿A qué hora se tocó levantarte hoy?
A las 5:30, porque sabemos que muchos de los jornaleros ahí son ignorados por nuestra propia gente. Muchas veces son
They talking with agency.
Nosotros tenemos como todo y ellos a veces no tienen casi nada.
La idea empezó como el sueño de Ventura, uno de los jóvenes, y ahora más de 40 se han unido a su causa.
Y hace aproximadamente un mes tuvimos un car wash aquí mismo en el YMCA en la 45 y recaudamos a $400, que fue el dinero que usamos para comprar el pan, el café y las cafeteras.
Hicieron con mucho sacrificio para nosotros. Le agradecemos mucho.
En el camino los estudiantes también han aprendido lecciones.
Me da tristeza porque cuando estábamos ahí, estaban como un niño de 15 a 16 años que estaba ya parado, listo para trabajar, en vez de estar en la escuela estudiando.
Y hasta jóvenes que eran de pandillas rivales han bajado los puños para unir.
Oh, I missed it. So this is the moment. It's a historic moment in the life of tiny East Oakland when it comes to our youth, because the homies are home, everybody's told you gotta watch TV, and then you see some of the Border Brother homies kicking it at the stoop, and then Tank's about to get interviewed. What the hell is he gonna say? And that night, he doesn't know mom's watching. I done hit her on the cell phone. Mom, you gotta see your son. Oh, he got arrested? No. Mom, you gotta see him on the news. Like I said, he got arrested? No, you gotta see him on the news. You should have seen the screaming call I got after she saw this. Because the new world is possible.
Listo para trabajar, en vez de estar en la escuela estudiando.
Y hasta jóvenes que eran de pandillas rivales han bajado los puños para unir sus manos y ayudar.
Nosotros no estamos destruyendo nuestra vida para nada. Ahora me siento mejor y somos amigos y estamos trabajando juntos en la comunidad.
Esta actividad los estudiantes la seguirán haciendo por las próximas 5 semanas, los lunes a las 6 de la mañana. Para conteo de noticias y más, Pilar Niño, Telemundo.
High school students from a number of Oakland schools came out early this morning on this school holiday to offer pastries and support to day laborers. The students are members of the La Raza Club. They say they were moved to action after learning about the difficulties faced by many of these workers. An adult facilitator said some of the students are members of rival gangs who have decided to be peaceful and serve the community.
So you're a parent, you're a mentor, you're a coach, you're a teacher. How you feeling? Proud? How come? What's awesome? Possible. Say more about that.
The way I like to spend all the time is all these things that we dream of.
Yeah.
Really are possible. All we have to do is put our thoughts and energy into it.
Will you rub off on me? I need some of your possibilities.
I'm getting a beat over here myself.
Do your colleagues live in your possibility world? Good. That's good. That gives me hope. Other folks, how does that make you feel? Yes. Rich, what? Other folks? Yes?
They're very motivated and proud of this kid, because I, was part of it, growing up, and I saw him off my family.
Yeah.
And I work with these kids, and I get, make them and I've never been on this kind of kid, because I was one of them. And that's where I'm at now.
Where are you at now?
In a master's program.
Master's program. That's what's up. Congratulations. That's what's up. Give her some love. I saw one hand in the back. Yes. Y'all work together? Y'all are about to. See. Yet. Anything you want me to send your agency, I'll be the bad guy. So I got you. Let me try to cue back up, because I know I have a limited amount of time. So let me see. How do we do this? You told me on what slide we were in, not that one. Chetos. There? And so I hit this, I think. Oh yeah, it worked. Okay, so how do we make this a reality though, but not after school? Inside of a high school. I want to show you how to make this happen in a meaningful and sustainable way. And we didn't originally have an A through G accredited UC class as one of the few Latino history classes. It took a struggle. And so we went to a high school that said, we don't want anything you're offering. What we do want is to take kids that are disengaged and do something with them. Wow. High expectations. So we called it Adelante, moving forward. And Adelante became a leadership program. And I want to kind of walk you through it as fast as I can, but as slow as I can too, so that you get the gist of it, and so that as you're dreaming in Richmond or in other parts, that maybe we can pull this off together. This was the cohort, and the cohort came together, and they were going to learn ethnic studies history 4 days a week, but we were going to do it with a twist. And so what it ended up becoming is a very special kind of history course with 3 pillars. The first pillar is self-care. And what we mean by that is, how do you teach young people the resiliency they need to deal with emotional drive-bys? We are used to physical drive-bys, but it's harder when mom or dad or boyfriend or girlfriend says, you ain't shit, and you're never going to be it. Why do you even bother? You are lazy, you are fat, you are good for nothing, you are worthless, you're just going to end up, and then you fill in the blank. And then the person spraying you with these words is mama, papa, hitting you, the neighborhood, society, the cops. How do you deal with emotional drive-bys? And so what we needed to learn is, how do we do matrix moves so that we would role play what was about to happen at home. Cesar, you don't know, watch. When I go try to talk to my dad, he's about to spray me. I'll play your dad. And so we would come up and role play, and we would play out scenarios, and we were creating what's called ninja consciousness, so that the student knew the moves that were coming and could be invisible when they needed to dodge the bullets a little better at home. But even if the bullets kept coming, how to not have them hit here. How they can kind of dodge them and have them go in one ear and out the other when it was necessary, and the tools that they need to not believe what they're being fed and told by the media, their parents, or even their schools. The second part of it is, how do we develop genuine knowledge of self on multiple knowledges? Not just ethnic studies, but who we are as human beings beyond race, ethnicity, and beyond what supposedly separate us. And what is the leadership that we all have within? That was the 3-pillar course. I have a ton of curriculum. I don't get to exercise it anymore because now I'm stuck in book work at Harvard. If this curriculum is useful to you, you email me afterwards. And now I don't have a workshop after this, so I have plenty of time to chop it up if you'd like to do that. I want to talk about 4 young people, 3 undocumented. And once they went through the program, they found their agency. Javier is the young man. He's pictured inside the news studio. He's inside of CBS News. He's not just the subject anymore. He's making news. And we needed him to see himself as a newsmaker early on. And you're going to see him in a little bit as an 11th grader talking at a very important hearing in Oakland. And you're going to see his voice. Margarita was heavily gang involved, was really struggling, and she had a baby at age 16. But now she just finished off her second year at Mills, straight A's, biologist, 4.0, from the hood, from East Oakland. And Diana and Roxana, one of them is struggling a little bit more. She's not at Santa Cruz because of economic situations, even though she got a full ride, but Roxana's doing great at Chico. And we're flying Javier and Roxana all the way to Harvard in about 3 weeks, and they're going to speak at Harvard University about the life they're creating for themselves and what they're doing in the world. So that's pretty phenomenal. This is some of the kind of stuff that we're doing in terms of coursework, the kind of stuff that we're doing. And to some of you it may be boring, to some of you it may be really relevant. But who saw the film Precious? Who took it backwards and read the book Push by Sapphire? Well, that's part 2. It's called The Kid. And that's one of Precious's children. Sapphire is a phenomenal writer. And how do you get a young person to read cover to cover a 373-page book? Make it so relevant, they have to struggle through the words. If you make it so relevant after they've seen Precious and they read Push, then they want to get through it. And so I don't have struggling readers at all. We figure out how to deal with the struggle. And this is an example, because you might instantly think, yeah, whatever. So I limit how much writing can happen in my class. So what I say is you only have 40 words to tell me what sexy is. And someone who's hella sexy. 40 words! Oh, hell no. Can I write 41? No. You're doing too much writing in class. You only have 20 words to describe your block. Then 10, then 5, then 1. By the time they're done, they wrote about 2 pages. Right? But it's reverse psychology sometimes. And so we figure out what we're going to do with struggling writers and struggling readers. The next thing is we're trying to study different ways of being and understanding the world. So we analyze ancient wisdom from China called the I Ching. There's no Chinese students in our program. It doesn't matter. It's about how do we learn from other peoples. And then we learn Toltec wisdom from the author of The Four Agreements, which is a phenomenal book for middle school and high school age youth called The Voice of Knowledge. Now, every time we start class, we start this way. Can I get a volunteer? Come on up. She's coming to class, yo. I'm the proud teacher. I stand at the door. You can't come in without dealing with me, right? And we know each other, so this won't be as awkward as it really is. And so usually I meet him at the door. Tell me your name.
Andrea.
Andrea, is it okay if I smudge you?
Sure.
And so I am aware that I'm a male teacher. I'm aware that she's a female student. I'm pretending she's a high school student. I usually close my eyes when I smudge because to many students at the high school level, they're very self-aware of their body and it creates all kinds of different issues for them. So usually I'm thanking her for coming, but I want to bless the temple, bless her heart, bless her body, ask her how her day was, and then give her a hug. And that's the welcoming for every student, every day, every time. It's a celebration of them and life. Is it okay if I do that? Now what happens is when you have 30 of them, they just line up. They just know. I don't ask them to line up. That would be very disrespectful. And when they see their adult teacher humbling himself this way, I don't know what it does to kids. Can I give you a hug? How's everything? Everything okay?
Good.
You sure? Yes. What about that fight with him? Y'all cool now? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Can you give her some love? So, I think you all have your rituals in class, but you want to talk about a reset button, it's right there. I just reset her day and my day. We just had a private moment where it was just the two of us. I have it 30 times. And what happens is this process takes me 7 minutes of class time. So I'm ready with a hot video that you're going to miss. So that video you saw with Damian Marley, if you show up late to class, you're going to miss the hottest video ever, because I be coming out stuff without the crates. So you show up early, and as soon as you get smudged and you get your materials, you're ready to watch that video, and you know you're analyzing it. But it's a culture that we've built in over time. For those of you that are not in the classroom, I hope I'm not boring you with these kind of details, but I hope it's meaningful to somebody. Can somebody read for me in your loudest, proudest voice, part A of what our role, or what I believe our role to be? Who can help me out?
That young people see their potential, ability, and responsibility to change the world for the better, and find a sense of who they are, find a reason to get up in the morning.
Whether I'm teaching mathematics or science or astronomy or geology or loveology or whatever, epistemology, we do this at the core. If kids have a reason to get up in the morning, that's huge. And so these are kids who are going through different things. Joanna is having a really hard time with her self-esteem, and she's having a hard time believing in herself. So what do? Throw her up on a tree. And you're going to have to jump off. And you're going to have to face some fears. And what happens when you face your fears and you jump off? What happens after? Besides the poo-poo in the pants. What happens after you face your fears? Has anybody jumped off a plane? What happened after? After the pooping of the pants? Hell yeah! What? The U.S. government's going to stop me? Nah, I just jumped off a plane. And I see people coming in, so how much time do I have? 2 minutes? Damn. Okay. So it's important that kids not read about heroes, but meet them. Here's 3 in California that I want to take you to. You can go to East LA. You can go to Corazón del Pueblo and meet one of the founders of the Brown Berets. Here's Carlos Montes with Diana meeting each other and learning Brown Beret history. We are in the home of Cesar and Helen Chavez. There's Helen Chavez right there. She's still alive, and they're running a national museum for Cesar Chavez in Delano in Bakersfield. And you could stay there overnight. I can get you that information. It's an amazing trip. And you can meet Father Greg Boyle of Homeboy Industries. So when kids meet these real heroes and sheroes that they've learned about, it has such an impact. Imagine learning UFW history in the living room of UFW history. It has a whole different meaning. I might need to fast forward a little bit. Well, I need to show you Javier. Javier is the young man that spoke as a senior on the news. It's important to know your history. Here he is in 11th grade, having already taken a course, knowing who he is, having to speak at a public safety committee meeting with a bunch of adults and a bunch of cops trying to pass a gang injunction in their neighborhood. And here's his root analysis of the problems plaguing Oakland, California.
And I'm here against the gang injunction. First of all, I want to start off with this whole concept that the police has, that the gangs are really the problem in Oakland. The problem comes from the root, and the root is poverty and education. When you guys have poor education, stuff that we don't even want to learn, stuff that makes us not even want to go to school, that's the stuff that gets us out in the street. And when stuff like that affects us, it's going to keep on going. It's a never-ending cycle. Police could be just as easily considered a gang. They have guns, they have uniforms, they wear the...
He had to say that in front of the cops. And so that's no easy feat. I'm going to fly through these. It's powerful when the Venturas, now new students, said, what can we do for our undocumented students who are having a hard time and no one will give them the application fee? This is pre-Dreamers. They started organizing undocumented student fundraisers to help with scholarships and other things. And they did it with spaghetti sales. I want to show you the amazing talent that our young people have. That is Phoenix, and Phoenix drew the Aztec calendar from memory. From memory. Because you have to remember, we can't pass the Casey today, but we built Tenochtitlan, Teotihuacan, Chichen Itza. So we have mathematics, astrology, archaeology in our blood. But something has happened with our educational system. Here's Lila finding her voice. Here they are on the radio, mobilizing and organizing their community. It's important to meet OGs like Nane. Nane, who owns land in Santa Cruz, who's doing peace treaties, who's organizing with the Dalai Lama, and knowing these kind of heroes and sheroes. And I'll end with this, that oftentimes, if we're not helping young people in this area, someone else is. And gang values, there's a lot of amazing things that gangs do. they do create a sort of cohort mentality. There is a sense of belonging. They take care of kids when we stop at 6:01 p.m. We close our school doors and our after-school program doors at 6 o'clock. So you need a 6:01 p.m. plan. And Maslow said you need to meet people's basic hierarchy of needs. How are you going to tell a kid stay in school when they're hella hungry and they got no job and they have no money? So how do we have economic, sustainable programs in the neighborhood? That is the work that Malcolm X was talking about. And I think it is our revolutionary duty not only to look at coping strategies, not only to look at resiliency, but we need to teach young people and help them discover who they are, what they're about, and help them on the journey to figure out their life's calling. And when they do that, a new world is possible. And I know it's hard to believe me, but I want you to remember the life of Nelson Mandela. And I'm going to end with him, because here's a man who was facing not undocumented students, not a U.S. government, but a government that had a system of apartheid. And he had the dream and the belief that we are going to change this society, even if I have to spend 30 years in prison. And he changed his society. So why can't we? Why can't we take on the U.S. government? Why can't we have freedom for our people? I think the time is now and it's up to us. Gracias.